Hello everybody and welcome to this walkthrough of the game thread check plugin. So I had a lot of questions regarding animation graphs and multi-threading and where exactly people's logic was running, so I decided to make this tool to illustrate exactly where your logic is running. So I've got the third person example project open here. There's nothing special going on with it, and I've got my plugin already installed. So first of all, we're going to start off in the third character blueprint. So this has a couple of nodes which come bundled with the actual plugin. So first of all, there, if you just type game check, you can see that we have a game thread check category, and we've got two nodes. So we've got is running on game thread, and then we've got the is threading node. So these two nodes have different behavior. So this first one checks if the execution of this function is running in the game thread. Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of a walkthrough of what this one's doing. So if we just scroll down here, so we've got an event tick. So if we just plug the is running on game thread into this event tick, and we've got logging turned on, and we just compile and play. So this means this function, as you can see by here, it is running on the game thread. So this actual execution of this event tick is running on the game thread. If we plug in this little test example here, test function, and this is just a function that's running the exact same function again, but it's on a key binding. And let me just pop open my output log there. Now if I press K, you can see that this function is running on the game thread. Okay, so this behavior does change if we move over to something like the animation graph. So if we've got our update event here, and we're just going to plug in the same function here and click run, and now you can see that it is running on the game thread. But if we disconnect that and we move to something like the blueprint thread safe update animation event and plug that in there, you can now see that it is now running on the worker thread. We've got our character running there. This is running on the worker thread. So this means this animation graph is multi-threaded. Wonderful. However, this will change even if it's on the multi-thread. If you turn off things like the multi-threading enable boolean, the class settings, you can see now this is just running on the game thread. If we turn that back on, if we go to the class defaults and go to root motion, you do turn root motion from everything, suddenly again we're running back on the game thread. So this is really cool for seeing exactly where your logic is running, and this also applies to, if I just disconnect that for a moment, if we go to the animation graph, on my output pose here I've got a node function here. So if we just open up that, and this is supposed to be a thread safe function, as you can see here, it's thread safe. So if we plug this in and run that, this is running on a worker thread, which is really cool. So this is really useful. So you can plug this node into anywhere you're running logic, and you can just see if it's running on the game thread or is it not running on the game thread, which is really useful. The second node we have, if we return over here, is the is threading node. So this actually takes a anim instance, so we're just using the character meshes anim instance, and it'll just log whether that animation graph is threading or not. So if we plug that in and compile, and then we can see anim graph is threading. But again, if we go back to the animation graph and do things like turn off the multi-threading bool, we now have anim instances running on the game thread, anim instances running on the game thread there. Or if we turn multi-threading back on, and then we go turn on root motion from everything, we can now see animation instance is running on the game thread. So this is really useful. I hope this can help you identify where your logic's running. So we also have, as well as those two nodes, we also have a anim instance which I've created. So it just inherits from the regular anim instance with some extra functionality. So if you open up any animation graph, go to the class settings and go into the parent class here, and we can choose game thread check anim instance. So if we compile that, you can see we've got lots of logging stuff going on now. So if we go back to the class defaults, we'll see we have this new category here. So we've got is game thread logging active. So you can turn that on and off, and it won't do anything, and it'll start doing logging if it's enabled. So if we go back to our level, you can now see we're getting some logs in the top corner. So we're running the post evaluate animation event is running on the game thread. Our blueprint thread safe update animation is also running on the game thread, and our blueprint update animation is also running on the game thread. There is also, so that's, let me just go back to this for a second. There is So we've got the initialize animation, we got the update animation, we got the post update, post animation event, and then we've got the blueprint thread safe. So we've got all four of them logging whether or not they're running on the game thread. So if I just quickly turn that root motion back to ignore and go back to the game, we'll now see our post evaluate and our update animation are running on the game thread, but our thread safe update is running on the worker thread. And if we just clear our log, click clear our log, because we're open, got the animation graph open. Oh, let me close that one as well. So if we open up that and we scroll right to the top, you'll also see that there is actually a logging for the blueprint initialized animation there as well. So that's really useful. So if I open up the animation graph again, close that down. So in the game thread check options, you also have a variety of different options for disabling logging. Let's say, for example, I know we're getting quite a bit of spam here. So we're not interested in logging maybe the initialize or the update logging. We'll only care about if the thread safe update, what that's doing. So you can turn all those options on, so it'll disable those specific loggings and you're left with just that one. So now you can start fiddling with other options, like I say, turning root motion to everything, and suddenly you'll start seeing the behavior of that changing depending on what you are doing. So you can see there. So I hope that's useful. Yeah, like I say, I got a lot of questions on what options change game threading and multi-threading. So I thought this tool would be very useful to allow you to see exactly what's going on firsthand, and you can run is running on game thread function in any logic. So you can even run it in blueprints or animation graphs and it'll just tell you exactly where it's running. So I hope that is a useful tool, and thanks for watching.